Hi, welcome back to another episode of Coldstream Rod Shop. I'm Derek Fraser. In this week's video, we're going to be most likely working mainly on the 58 Ford Cab, but what's happened is we've got a few updates and a few things we'll pick away on, hopefully with the 32 Ford Roadsters. The drive shaft, unfortunately, fortunately, it was cut to the right length. Unfortunately, the yoke that was supplied, although it's the right number of splines, it's not the right size. It it simply won't fit on. So what I've done, I've knocked it off the drive shaft. The other new yoke is coming in tomorrow. So hopefully we'll get that yoke, we'll get the universal joint, and we'll get it on Brenda's Roadster. And then a lot of the bits and pieces for the brake system on the Camera Lady's Roadster chassis have come in. I think I've got everything. We might be able to get started on that. Then also I got a couple new toys this week. I've seen people use these little mini rotary files. I went on Amazon and picked up a cheap one just to see how it works, and it's pretty cool. It actually is quite useful for getting into tight places I couldn't get into before, so got to play with that. And then, like I said before, I blew out my old shears and actually went out and got a new one. So now I've got like a pistol grip style that's actually much easier to use. I mean, you can get these just about anywheres, but make sure it's one that's relatively heavy duty, because if you're going to cut 18 gauge, you can't go with the cheap stuff. So that's a little bit better quality one. And then also I went ahead and I was tired of tripping over the air hose. So again, same thing, I upgraded and I got myself a retractable air hose so that I don't kill myself leaving it laid around the floor. So mainly what I think we're going to be working on is we've got to do the floor section. Like, this is the panel here and the front body mount. So we're going to mainly be working on putting that in the 58 Ford Cab. As I mentioned at the end of the last video, what arrived here was the inner and outer cab corners for the 58 Ford Cab. At first I thought we were just going to put these on, but the owner actually has a 57 crew cab, which he ultimately wants to use these on the crew cab. And what he's hoping that I can do is use these to make copies to replace them on the 58 Ford Cab. So not sure if I can get to that this episode, but that's kind of on the plate of what we want to try and do. So mainly, I guess we're just going to focus on getting the floor done, some of the supports, and then whatever else I can do to pick away at the 232 Ford Roadsters. Today we made some changes to Brenda's Roadster. The owner decided to change up the wheels. These are, I believe, 1934 Dodge artillery wheels, which have the 5-on 4.5 bolt pattern. So he had these on another car that unfortunately they didn't clear the fenders, so he decided to put them on the 32 Roadster. So we put them on here right now. There are some caps, some hub caps that he wants us to put on. So these are going to go onto it. I just got to get the right size screws. So the plan is to do that, because apparently there's no one that makes hubcaps that'll fit this. And of course the blue here on the new white wall tires, we got to clean that up for him. Also, he dropped off a few more parts for the future build piled up here, because we're going to take this one a little further. The drive shaft situation, we did resolve the yoke, which is great. The yoke is the right size, it fits in. We got a new universal joint there for it. It does fit the rear. Next hiccup is that these U-bolts are actually for an 8-inch Ford, so got the wrong ones or picked up the wrong ones, so we've ordered some of those. They'll be in a couple of days. We'll be able to finally tie in the drive shaft. Then over on the 58 Cab here, I started making patches for the front of the A-pillar. So the first one, we did the same thing on the other side, so we'll cover this, but maybe not as much detail. So that's the first piece that more or less fits. I got to do a little trimming. We'll put a couple holes in the bottom of here to simulate like a spot weld onto it. and then I'll work around to the side next and get the other side done. So like I said, we'll cover it, but maybe not in as much detail as what I did when we did it on the other side, because you can review that in episode number 1 of the 58 Ford Cab. There is the front patch of the bottom of the A-pillar all welded in and dressed, and then I just kept on going, and I made a little piece on the side there. Just basically took a piece of cardboard and kind of fashioned a hole and cut a hole out, and then took a piece of metal and kind of, I don't want to make it sound really simple or anything, but just bent the piece of metal to fit the hole, so it kind of went up like that. Now, in order to do this crown, I had to hit it with a ball peen hammer to give it a little shape, and then just took it over to planing hammer to kind of just give it a little smoothness. So it's all welded in here and dressed. This is welded across the top. This corner is welded in, and then we've got 2 spot welds across the bottom there holding that in place. So we're 2/3 of the way, or 3/4 of the way of getting the bottom of the A-pillar all welded in. That is the last piece right there. So I now have to make a piece that kind of comes down. It's got a little flange in the bottom, which will have a couple spot welds. This flange here must continue down with a couple spot welds there as well, just like we did on the other side. So we'll carry on with that in the morning. There's the first step to making the paper pattern for the bottom of the A-pillar. So we've got basically its crease straight across there, and then we're going into the corner. What I'm not able to do is actually make the flange over there. So the plan is to, well, maybe I can fold it there, but the plan before, what I did, I just welded a piece of sheet metal in there as a, just to make it in 2 pieces, and then dressed it up and made it look good. What I failed to do previously, a couple of seconds ago, here's the paper pattern that I had used to make that particular patch. So made up the paper pattern, cut it out of metal, and trimmed the inside, and then welded it flush. So make it up in paper first, transfer it to metal. You're still going to have to work the metal some to get it in there, but at least you got a starting point of what the shape looks like, and that's how you do it. So follow along, we'll make up a metal piece. So there's that little patch all trimmed up. Very little tweaking I'm going to have to do here right now, but what I'll do is I'm going to punch a hole there, 2 holes there, and then across the bottom to basically simulate the spot welds. And then what I'm going to do is I'll clamp this in place, I'll weld it along and dress it all up. So we'll see in a couple seconds. Here's the finished patch all welded in and dressed. It was pretty tight quarters to get in there. Normally when I'm grinding welds, I use my DeWalt grinder or any kind of grinder with a flapper disc onto it, or potentially grinding wheels or whatever to get in there. But in this case, it's really tight quarters, so kind of reverting back to the air tools. Now, I never use the air tools really a whole lot because most of the stuff is kind of exposed, and I can get at it with the knee grinder, whether it's electric or battery or whatever. You know, you grab the flapper disc and grinding wheels and dress it off. But in some of those tight quarters, in order to get the welds ground off, basically use like a rotary file with a carbide cutter on the end to dress the welds down, and then use this new rotary band sander to get inside. Now, these are aluminum oxide belts. They don't last very long, so I've got some other ones on order, some I think zirconium or something like that. So, but this actually does the trick. It gets into those little grooves like that and dresses stuff off. I mean, if you're watching this, you're probably most of you guys have these, but it was a really neat addition to the shop here. And then in the past, I was never a big fan of the little right angle air tools and stuff, but once I realized that I just need to get the pressure up on my hoses, they actually work pretty well. And then I just recently tried some of the 3M Cubitron sanding discs. We're not trying to promote 3M, but holy crap, these things really do a good job. I mean, they cost a lot, but I've heard from other body guys that this sandpaper is like the cat's meow, so to speak. Lasts 2, 3, 4 times longer than regular sandpaper. And I ground a few welds off with that, and that thing is still sharp, I have to admit. So going to keep on trying to use these, especially in the tight quarters. I've got another, I was using a 2-inch pad on the back. I put a 3-inch pad on order, so I know that that's going to improve my sanding with that particular type of disc. But these little aluminum oxide ones, they're gone in a couple minutes on heavy welds. That thing there, it cuts. So anyways, just a little bit on the tools I was used to basically get into the tight quarters of cleaning welds out. So right now we have the A-pillar all welded in around 4 sides. The step is welded in, the supporting structure is welded in. So now we're going to repeat the process as we did from the other side. We fixed the floor where it reaches the flat part of the floor. We have to do the same thing on this side. So going to work on making up a panel to fit across there. And then we're going to cut out this floor and replace that. Here's my paper pattern for this side. It wasn't exactly the same as the other side. We only have the one reveal there to do. We didn't have the big hole cut out for the steering column. This side here has got a different shape to it, and also the metal here is much stronger and looks like it's not rusted out like it was on that side. So what I'm thinking I'm going to actually have a weld line here and across the top. So what I'll do is I'm going to transfer take that paper, transfer it to metal, but then also I've got to add in for the flange that goes across the bottom right there. So like the other side, I'd made up this template for what the flange shape was going to be, because when we cut that piece out, we're going to be taking this flange with it. So I have to add in the metal and the paper pattern to allow for that bent over edge. Here's the floor panel in metal. The reveal here that I made, I did that over here on the bead roller. I used the same 1/4-inch step dies that I've used many times before. I left the top step die alone, as I've mentioned again when I've made a lot of panels, and I've got basically the edges of the bottom one softened over. So what that does for me is I have one sharp edge and then one soft edge. So rolled this, made this horseshoe shape here. But when you do this on something this small, what's happening is that you're shrinking the metal in. So when you do this, it's going to basically buckle the panel a little bit. So in order to alleviate that, what I did, I went over to my planishing hammer and I did a little bit of linear stretching, I think is the correct term, but essentially ran it through the planishing hammer right there. So I thinned out the material and stretched the material back out until I had a flat panel. And then this bottom lip here was just took it over on the brake, and I rolled the small edge first and then flipped. I folded the small edge first and then flipped the other one back to get the shape that's required. Now over here on the cab, I've actually got the metal cut out already, and I did one trial fit with this. It pretty much fits in. Hopefully I can do this without it falling on me. But it basically fits in place right now. I just need to do a tiny little bit of more trimming, and then I'll get the clamps out and then we'll weld that in place. There's a look at the outside of that panel welded in. And here is the inside. I've got it all welded and dressed. Used these 3M Cubitron pads for the first time. That I used one pad to clean up most of that, and it is still quite sharp. I need to get a new a 3-inch backing roll lock thing for it, so it'll work a little better. But wow, it cuts really good. So we've got that in. So next step is going to be to cut this panel out and then prep the the panel over there to fit into here like we did the other side. And voila, the floor is gone. So I cut the floor out. There was a section that's tack welded up against this firewall support. That's out. We've cut it along here. Same as the other side, I didn't go the full patch panel into this main support because everything is solid. Now along this flange, we drilled out, I drilled out the spot welds with that same weld as I did in the previous episode, and came around this corner, and this flange was basically gone. As well, there's a small little rotted out section here. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to repair the flange, and I'll put a patch in here. And then what I'll do is I will trim that panel to fit that hole and go to putting a whole bunch of clamps to clamp it in place. I now have the floor panel all trimmed and clamped in place. You can see some of my welding clamps there on the outside that clamps it against the patch that I just put in previously. And then over here we can see the various panel clamps along the side. I have all my holes ready for doing my spot welds. Got some weld clamps here, some vice grips. I don't know if I have as many clamps as I did from the other side, but right now it's in pretty securely. And the next step will be to get the welder out and start welding. We're going to be doing spot weld. We'll be doing spot welds. We're going to do a butt weld along this edge, and then like on the other side, this particular panel came with a lap weld. I don't typically do those, but no problem. We're going to do it. But we'll weld this lap weld here, and then later on, when the underneath is finished, the overlap there, we got to make sure that we actually cover the overlap underneath, either with some seam sealer or some undercoating or something, so water doesn't get up behind the lap joint. So almost got this in. Here's the end result of welding the floor in. Probably took a little over hour and a half, I guess, by the time I welded everything in place, and then ground off all the tops of the spot welds to make it look like a spot weld, and then went back and picked up on some of the little porous holes that you get sometimes when you're welding old metal to new metal. This metal is actually galvanized too, so I have to dress the zinc off of it before I weld it, otherwise it just fizzles or whatever when you're welding it. So floor's all welded in, and as you can see, I've got some clamps back there again. I skipped ahead of myself here a little bit, so I'm now working on putting that floor support in. So we're going to try going upside down, and I'll show you. So right now there is, oh, I have to get back a little ways. So there is the floor support. Had to do the same thing as I did last time. As you can see down in the back there, here, like that. Down in the back, I had to put a little flange there because those supports, as far as I can tell, were designed to go over existing supports and not be like a new complete installation. So we've got some flanges put there and some holes punched into it. So what I'll do some welds in those holes. I've got to put a few more clamps up here so that it's up tight against the floor before I do the final weld. But watch along, we're almost got the floor sections done here. So there's the passenger side front body mount all welded in place. We've got the spot welds all done and everything dressed up. So that kind of finishes off the passenger side floor. What I've done in the interim, I've taken the red transmission tunnel off of the piece on the floor there. The donor, there was a donor car that this was cut off of, and the surrounding floor material. So I just basically undid all the bolts and kind of just positioned the transmission tunnel cover in there just to make sure it fits. I kind of knew it would, but it's just laying in there for now. Everything is kind of cleaned up for now. The next step is to start working on these rear cab corners. So I'm not sure if I'll get that done in this episode or not, but there's a few other things around the shop I have to kind of clear up. We brought the doors in from outside. Here are the rear corners. Now, one of the challenges with this, what I was asked to do was try and use those as a pattern and then save these ones for the 57 crew cab that is coming here at some point in time. And then also we did get the exhaust system in for the camera lady's car. So I might switch gears right now and do some work on the camera lady's exhaust for the rest of this episode. Here's a project today. We are going to pick up a 32 5-window coupe for a friend. Ultimately, I guess maybe we'll be doing some work on it or helping him out, but I'm not sure what the pedigree of this is, but it was a hot rod at one time. Someone has chopped it, but at the point now, we are going to load this up and take it home. It looks a little crumbly here, but it's I certainly started with a lot worse than this. Doors are solid, body's solid. We just have to work on some subframe and whatnot. So right now we're going to get ready to load this on the truck and take it home. There it is on the back of the trailer, gutter strapped down. And we're gonna go pick up the deck lid now, and then we'll be on our way. So there's the coupe body unloaded at my friend's place. He's kind of camera shy, doesn't want to be on the camera, but we're going to show you the body. And then this is his chassis that he's working on. He's got a 32 Ford chassis, got a really nice firewall he just picked up. And then down in the back there, you see he's got an original 32 gas tank. So anyway, he's well on his way for making this a project. What we'll do is over time, as he needs parts to help with bringing this body back to shape, we'll make some of the 5-window parts like we did before and some of the wood pieces to help him along and show you how this project progresses. But anyways, another 32 Ford Coupe found its new home here in Nova Scotia. And anyways, follow along, and as the updates come along, we'll show you what's happening. So as you can see, I didn't get nothing done on the exhaust on the camera lady's Roadster. As you seen a couple seconds ago, we wound up going to help a friend pick up a 32 Ford 5-window coupe body. He wants to make a project of it. One of the things I agreed to do with him was to help him, since we already resurrected 2 32 5-window coupes. So more than likely over somewhere in the future, some of the future episodes, we'll be making some pieces or helping him, reconstruct that body to put it on the frame and stuff. That's kind of up our alley. Over on Brenda's Roadster, we got a little bit done on that. We got the drive shaft in. Everything is done basically now for the body to come. So it was going to come in the next couple of days, but over the next week or so, the body is going to come up. Now the body is a Brookville Roadster body. It's all complete. It's in epoxy primer. There's a few things we're asked to do to it, but when it arrives, we'll talk about what we have to do to it when it goes on the body, on the frame that is. And then over on the 58 Ford pickup cab, we basically have the front of it all done. The cover for the transmission, I'm not sure yet if I have to do anything with it or not. There's a repair on it, but it's a solid cover, so I got to reach out to the gentleman that owns it, a friend of mine, and see what he wants done with that. And then the last thing to do on the cab will be to work on the rear cab corners, but that's going to be in a future episode. So that's it for this week of Coldstream Rod Shop. Please like, share, tag, and subscribe. Send me your comments. Thank you for watching, and everybody have a great week. Take care.